And it is time to round up another big story of the week now. Texas Democratic gubernatorial candidate Wendy Davis is making headlines for her stance on the hot button issue of marijuana. Davis told the Dallas Morning News that she would consider decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of pot. She also supports the use of medical marijuana. The current state senator told the Dallas Morning News, quote, Texas should learn from the experiences of other states when considering changes in its drug laws. Well, they aren't the only controversial comments that Davis has made in recent days. She's also come out in support of gay marriage and says she is in favor of open carry gun laws. The race for Texas governor is the topic this half hour. We want to turn to our panel now. In our newsroom, we have our legal analyst, Chris Tritico, news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. And a reminder that you can also chime in on our discussion on our Facebook page, or you can send me a tweet right now at Sally Mac, Fox 26. So, guys, what are the issues you think that voters are really talking about as we get closer and closer to this race?
You know, Sally, this race has taken on they're just ignoring their primary opponents and moving straight into the general election. It's as early as I've ever seen. The attacks that are going on between Wendy Davis and Greg Abbott have started right now, and we're a week from the primary. So this is going to be a long, hard-fought race. Wendy Davis came out, I think, in this week and attacked, in the last 10 days, and attacked Greg Abbott for his comments about the border and some other things. And I think because she was trying to turn away from the Republican attacks on her background and the statements that she had made about her background, and try to turn the tide and bring Greg Abbott to talking about things other than her and her background. And it seems to have worked, because Abbott on the border issue had to turn around and write an op-ed to the, I think, the Harlingen newspaper, trying to clean up the comments that he made about that. You know, Mustafa Tamiz, this thing about the marijuana, I think, is a non-starter on an issue. The governor already said that he is in favor of decriminalizing. I just don't think that's an issue. I think the bigger issues are the border discussion that they had, and her complete reversal on guns, open carry.
Well, I think that as you see the campaign roll out, she's actually going to roll out policies. The policy that didn't get talked about very much was her pre-K, her stance. This was the final section of her policy on education. And right now, you know, in education system, if we don't educate the youngest of in our community, then the chances of them graduating from high school is very low. So in a campaign like this, you're going to see attacks on both sides throughout. They're competitive campaigns, they're strong campaigns, but we really should start underscoring some policy issues that she's taking, which you're not hearing from Greg Abbott. You have not heard a word from Greg Abbott about education, which is what voters care about. You
know, two things, Jackie Bally. First, I think she was doing this as trying to turn away from the questions about her background, which I wasn't really sure that was a really strong attack anyway. But this thing about the open carry took everybody by surprise, even the Democratic Party.
Yes, she did a 180, because before she wanted to have very strict restrictions on gun laws, and now all of a sudden she's saying, oh, I'm a proponent of this. She's also saying now that she's a proponent of, she's against late-term abortions, but that was not her stance earlier. So now that she's running statewide and she's trying to have her policies and her platform conform to the voters, but it's not going to work, because we're going to remember exactly where she stood on these issues, and the fact that she's now trying to turn herself around and now trying to become somebody that she thinks would be more to the right or more conservative. It's not going to work, because we know exactly what her positions are. As far as policies, the general will roll out his policies. You will see that they do conform with the voters, and that's why he's going to be our next governor.
Doesn't her move on the open carry, isn't that a really pretty smart political move for her? It attracts people who would support her on the abortion issues and things like that in the Republican Party, who couldn't vote for her for other reasons. That gives them a reason to come in.
Well, I'm going to disagree with Jackie. I know that's going to surprise.
Yeah, shocking.
But look, I don't think she's changed her position. I don't think that anybody can document what her position was anti-gun laws or not, because there wasn't one. I mean, she's always been supportive of that. I disagree with it, but she's supportive of it. And what you're going to find that there's a number of people that will agree and disagree with her policies, but she's not from someone who's flipping back and forth. She's someone who has Texas values and is running a strong campaign. General Abbott is waiting for a poll to tell him exactly how he's going to, weigh in on these issues. Because if he was going to weigh on education, he would have done so now. He's been in public office for a number of years. The only position he's taken is basically defending the $5 billion cuts that Texas made to education.
Actually, he's wrong. I know you find this shocking, but she has tried to write legislation and pass legislation to ban guns on public property. She's tried to restrict gun shows. So she has had a written and documented opposition for against gun laws, and now all of a sudden she's open carry and she's a proponent of gun laws.
But not on the issue that she just spoke on, which is how do you carry your weapon. She's taken a lot on background checks and things that make sense.
All right,
He's also wrong because she is, again, she also...
All right, let's change the topic here. Let's talk about I want to talk about the border issue, because that was really, I think, the most important thing of the week was this. Greg Abbott went down and he said words to the effect that the conditions on the border are like just going across into Mexico. And Wendy Davis pounced on it hard. And Greg Abbott felt so strong about it. He wrote an op-ed at the Harlingen newspaper backing out of what he had said. She rocked him on his heels, didn't she?
I think Greg Abbott wanted to make clear, he wanted all of us to be clear as to what he meant with his statement. When you're going to see a lot of going back and forth, a lot of people on her camp is going to twist a lot of the words that the general is going to say, but he's going to be very consistent and very clear. He's a very educated and smart man, and that's why, again, he's going to be our next governor.
She rocked him pretty good, didn't she?
She did. Actually, I met Greg Abbott over the weekend. He's a very nice man. I think that he's someone who cares about Texas and cares about the United States, but he's really wrong on the policy. He's wrong on education, and in terms of what he said about the border, what some of his campaign has said about Wendy Davis in the past, I think the Republican Party has to become very conscious about how they come across. They don't want to come across sexist. They don't want to come across racist. And unfortunately, there's a lot of rhetoric out there that puts them in that box. Now, I think Governor Abbott is a good guy, and I think that he's done a lot for the state, but he's really wrong on the policies.
Well, and the attacks that the Republicans make on the Hispanics is not going to help them in the end of the day, is it?
Well, the general has a Hispanic wife, so he has not made attacks on the Hispanics. And just because a lot of Republicans and conservatives want to make sure that our borders are secure, that's not an attack on a certain ethnicity or a certain race. So by saying we want secure borders, we want people to come into the country or come into the state legally, that is not an attack. We just want people to abide by the law.
But that's not what he said.
No, that's not what he said, and I think that he did try to clean it up. And what happens basically is that even though if he didn't even mean it, because of the Republican Party's record on this issue, it sticks, and that's what he's worried about.
Everyone has to recognize the growing influence of the Hispanic vote. Quite frankly, if the Hispanics voted at the rate of everyone else, they would carry every election.
But they haven't, and when the Hispanics in Texas, when they do vote conservative.
That's not true.
That's not true at all.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
We're going to leave it right there, and we'll just see where this goes. I'm sure we'll be back on this issue later.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, reminder, early voting starts Tuesday, right? February 18th,
That's right.
and the primary is March 4th, so voters have their homework to do. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next hour.